Hi everyone, this is Elena of the Witches Box, and I'm here with another episode of Witch Booktube. And today we're talking about a book that I've been waiting to have come out for a very long time. It is also one of the books that we sent out for our March Witches Book subscription mailing, and it is A Lantern in the Dark by Danielle Blackwood. I'm just so excited about this book. Okay, let me give you the subtitle and then, all the things. Navigate life's crossroads with story, ritual, and sacred astrology. I love this book. I got an advance copy of this book many months ago, and it was such an honor to get to do that. I was asked to do a blurb, but for whatever reason, the publisher didn't put any of her blurbs that she got for this book in here. However, there were, I think, quite a few of us who thought this book was amazing. It was an honor to get to peek inside. But here's the thing, as much as I love, and please don't ever not send me advance copies. I want advance copies to all writers and publishers out there. However, it's really hard because when you get an advance copy and then you love the book, the minute I read the book, I'm like, this book is going to be part of our book subscription for sure. But then I had to wait. I couldn't tell you about it. I couldn't tell the people about it, right? Because it's an advance copy. It hadn't been published yet. That part is so hard. So hard, especially when you're someone like me who wants to talk about the books all the time. So I don't even remember how long I had to wait. It probably wasn't really very long, but it was kind of torturous. I'm not gonna lie. Love the book. Let me read you her bio, and then we're going to go into all the things. Danielle Blackwood is a professional astrologer with more than 30 years of experience and is certified in the principles and practice of contemporary psychological astrology. Danielle is also a registered counseling therapist, RTC, in Canada and holds a certificate in Jungian and post-Jungian clinical concepts through the Center of Applied Jungian Studies. She has been a priestess and educator since 1994, facilitating workshops, retreats, classes, and public ritual. She's also the author of The 12 Faces of the Goddess, and you can visit her at www.danielleblackwood.com. So I did a review of The 12 Faces of the Goddess a long time ago. It is one of those videos that I cringe about because the production value, I mean, we're low production value here, right? Like I get it. It's just who we are, just who I am. But those videos are really cringeworthy. In any case, I still reviewed the book back in the day. The video still lives here somewhere on YouTube, and I loved that book. It was such a great book. So when she reached out and asked me to read an advance copy, again, I was just thrilled and honored and so excited. I'm going to read you the table of contents and then we're going to talk about it. This video is going to come out before we have our March live Witches Book Coven gathering, which she is going to be joining us for. I'm really excited about this, and we're all going to get a chance to talk to her about sacred astrology, but also the book that she wrote. And I think that if I'm not mistaken, by the time this video comes out, we may still have a couple of bundles of this book and the other book that we paired with it available for sale. If you buy the bundle, you get an invite to that live gathering so that you can be there with her. If there is a link down below to that bundle, then that means that we still have a couple left. I highly encourage you to get this book, but also the other book as well, which is focusing on lunar nodes. We're all into the astrology this month, and it's depth astrology for me. Like, it really brings home the really deep spiritual and psychological ramifications and implications of astrology in our lives every single day, which I think gives us so much more than the typical astrology that we're all kind of dancing around with on the surface. Okay, let me just read you the table of contents and then we'll go from there. She's got it broken up into 3 parts. Part 1 is called Lantern in the Dark. Part 2 is the midlife transits. And part 3 is Full Circle. But let me read to you each of the titles of each chapter within all of those sections, okay? You got an acknowledgement, you got At the Crossroads Betwixt and Between, there's an introduction, and then How to Work This Book. And then Vasilisa the Beautiful. So a lot of this is explained through the lens of the story of Vasilisa and her process. Chapter 3 is The Saturn Return, Cultivating Authenticity, age 27 to 30. Chapter 4 is Navigating Your Saturn Return. And Chapter 5, A Magical Toolkit for Your Saturn Return. Then we're in part 2, which is the midlife transits. The Descent of the Goddess is chapter 6. Chapter 7 is the Pluto Square Descent, age 36 through 48. Chapter 8 is Navigating Your Pluto Square. Chapter 9 is A Magical Toolkit for Your Pluto Square. Chapter 10 is the Neptune Square Liminal, age 39 through 43. Chapter 11 is Navigating Your Neptune Square. Chapter 12, A Magical Toolkit for Your Neptune Square. Chapter 13, The Uranus Opposition Awakening, age 41 through 45. Chapter 14, Navigating Your Uranus Opposition. Chapter 15, a magical tool for your Uranus opposition. Chapter 16 is the Saturn opposition, discernment, age 44 to 45. Chapter 17, navigating your Saturn opposition. Chapter 18, a magical toolkit for your Saturn opposition. And then we're in the full circle part 3 section. Chapter 19, becoming Baba Yaga. Chapter 20, the second Saturn return, cultivating wisdom, which is age 58 through 60. Chapter 21 is navigating your second Saturn return. Chapter 22, a magical toolkit for your second Saturn return. There's a conclusion and there's a glossary and there's a bibliography. Let me really quickly peek at the bibliography because I actually just got off of a live video for our channel here on YouTube, and I mentioned the bibliography, but I didn't do a long enough scan. There is quite a lot of really great references in the bibliography if you're interested in this kind of psychology. I don't remember, and I think a couple of you will remember that when we were doing the Saturn Magic box and we did the deep dive gathering for Saturn Magic and Saturn itself as a planet, we talked a lot about what a Saturn return is and different ways of looking at your Saturn return throughout the course of your life. And in that conversation, one of the things that was mentioned was a book written many years ago by Z Budapest. And I believe the book was probably called Grandmother of Time. Don't quote me on that. Where she walked us through each of our Saturn returns and called them our 3 different fates. And she talked about it through the lens of the Norns, and each phase, each Saturn transit, or I don't know, full cycle, right? Because when it comes back to the return, it's completed a cycle in your life. She talked about them as being very specific fates. You have a particular fate to live out and particular developmental stages to accomplish at each of those Saturn cycles in your life. Generally, we have 3. If we live older, then maybe you might have a 4th, depending on how old you live, but it's much more common for people to just have 3 and a quarter and a half. And we loved talking about it that way. And I loved that book at that time because it gave me a much deeper understanding of how astrology plays out in the course of our lives and our developmental phases. So along comes this book, which not only discusses the same thing, but in much more spiritual depth and psychological depth about Saturn. But also what she's done here is she's gone through then also the different phases that we go through with different planets. There are other planets that create very specific types of life phases and life seasons and life cycles throughout the course of our lives, right? And so here we mentioned things like Pluto, Uranus, Neptune. They also layer onto the course of our lives very specific cycles that highlight or amplify certain lessons, certain transitions, certain developmental phases. I love this book because in a lot of ways it's a roadmap, right? Do you want to really pay attention to where are you right now? Like, what's your age? What is going on? What is astrology and what are the heavenly bodies really highlighting for you right now? And when you have that information, you can navigate that time, that transition, those phases with empowerment, with awareness. You can have more choice about what you're going to do and how you're going to move through it and what you're going to get out of it. Oftentimes, people who have difficulties with Saturn returns have an incredibly difficult time. There is like that, I don't know that it's even urban legend, but that people tend to, especially people who are well known in the public, there is a high suicide rate around the time of the first Saturn return. It is an intense transition, especially if you don't understand that it's happening. But once you understand, right? I read Grandmother of Time. I'm pretty sure that that's the title of it. Long before my first Saturn return, like a couple of years before my Saturn return. And so when I went through that phase, I went through that in a really empowered way, understanding that I was, in a really very real sense, having a transformation of identity, so that I understood that I was going to be letting go of very specific things because of exactly where my Saturn return was hitting my chart. I knew what was coming. And even though knowing what the roadmap looks like doesn't actually give you a full understanding of what it's going to feel like, that understanding helped me navigate in a really empowered way. It helped me make choices about the rituals that I was engaging in, the types of therapy that I was engaging in, right? Because I understood, oh, I'm really going to be navigating through very specific challenges around this, this, and this in my own personal life. And when you have a roadmap like this that gives you not just an understanding of where your Saturn return is going to be, but also your Neptune and your Uranus and your Pluto and all of those cycles, it's so exciting to me because it really allows for us to be much more mindful and intentioned around how we engage and show up for our own personal transformation and our own changing phases in life. Oh my God. So, can I say any more? She did a beautiful job. I think that everyone, regardless of whether or not you have an interest in astrology, I think that this is a book that would really very potently serve you in being aware and empowered about your roadmap and your own personal development in this life. It to me is a great tool to also pair with things like therapy, right? Know thyself. You've been hearing me talk about this since the inception of the Witch's Box. Knowing yourself, understanding yourself, and navigating that path with the capacity and the commitment to self-face yourself is a foundational pillar to being a witch, to having an empowered but also a responsible and present spiritual life that aids in your expansion. So listen, okay. I love that she wrote it. I love that I got to read it beforehand. I did not love the impatience of waiting because I wanted to share it with all of you. So far, everyone who's read the book as part of our subscription service and who's mentioned it here on our lives, but also in the forum, has just devoured the book and loved the book. This is a book that you'll be referencing often throughout the course of your life to get that information, to really understand where you are in the map of your world and your life. This is a 5. This is beautifully done. It's an important book to have. I think that, again, for me especially, this is the thing that I highlight the most here, is anything that's going to facilitate your deeper understanding of yourself, your soul, your purpose, is necessarily an integral part of your witchcraft life. And I am all here for that. And I'm all here for sharing that with you. And this is definitely one of those books. So it's Navigate Life's Crossroads. Danielle, beautiful, 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 beautiful. And there it is. And so if you see a link to this down below, that means that there's still some available, and grab it from us, because then you're going to get a link invite to our live gathering. And that is going to be on March 29th at 6 p.m. And you get an invite to that gathering if you get the remaining bundles that we have of the book. Not all of them, but just one bundle for you. So there it is. A Lantern in the Dark by Danielle Blackwood. Get the book. Love it. And I will see you all next week.